Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of, well that's 6, but 3 of In the Mind of God. In the previous episodes we looked at God's anger and then also his laws. And in this episode, we are going to be kind of delving into the mind of God as it pertains to his divine hiddenness. Yes, sometimes I'm thinking, why doesn't God just show up? Why doesn't he just, make himself readily apparent, take out all of the ambiguity, and we would just have a very clear picture of who he is and what he wants. But we don't have that. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. We are going to be continuing this series for as long as I can think of things that get into the mind of God, I suppose. ZZ's here. The microphone is set up differently because I'm always doing it. I do apologize for some of the previous videos where there was an annoying hum.
Want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?
I really don't know when my microphone is going to start humming, and it's getting quite obnoxious. So either I'll need to work out a new setup or just get a new microphone. We'll figure it out. Anyway, run the intro, finger guns, pew, 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 all that stuff. Let's do it.
Yes.
Alright, so what do I mean by divine hiddenness? Well, it is just the fact that God doesn't just manifest himself to humanity. He doesn't just appear in the clouds with millions, billions of people able to witness a singular event where he says, okay, hey, look, guys, I'm God. The Bible, that's totally real. Here's what I want you to do. Here's how you get to the path of salvation. You can start a queue over here and I'll take any questions. He doesn't do that. It is just complete silence. And so getting into the mind of God, I go into the why aspect of that. Well, why wouldn't you do that? And it gets worse when you take into account that God has done that in the past. So as always with these episodes or this series, I like to try and think of the God-human relationship as child and parent. So the illustration that I came up with this time was God is running a reality show. It is a reality show where you have a contestant and the goal is to find out who their father is.
You are the father.
And the person, one of them is their father, and he knows it as well. Now, if they win the contest and they are able to find out who their father is, they get to, have a good relationship with him and live a long, happy life, whatever. But if they lose, then their real father will pull out a gun and shoot them in the face. Or, I guess, depending on what version of Christianity you want to go with, he will spend the rest of their waking moments torturing them with fire. So he'll just take a red-hot poker and just poke them with it like every 10 seconds for the rest of their entire lives. So that's the consequence if you lose. And the contestant has to choose between, let's just give it like, say, 10,000. So you have 10,000 different varieties of Christianity. So you have 10,000 different dudes all basically pretending to be your father, but only one of them is your real father. As we progress in this discussion, I guess we'll flesh out the illustration a little bit more. But first off, I just want to read what has informed part of this, and that is an article in the JW.org under Bible Questions Answered. It talks about, has anyone ever seen God? Basically, it says no, which is just very bizarre to me because you have multiple accounts of God coming down and talking to people, and then in other parts of the Bible, it says, well, no one has ever seen the face of God. So then it's clearly just a contradiction. But in order to work around the contradiction, you have to say, well, it wasn't actually God that was talking. He was using an angel. Well, it doesn't say he was using an angel. And there are times in the Bible where it does say God's angel does appear to someone. Exodus 3:23. Anyway, let's not get bogged down with that a little detail. It does talk about in the next section how to see God now. So it gives a bunch of bullet points here. So let's go through those. Bullet point 1, learn about God's qualities, such as his love and generosity, as well as his wisdom and power through his creation. After being reminded of God's creative works, the faithful man Job felt as though God were right before his eyes. All right, so if this is the case, and you're supposed to go and look at creation and look at all of his love and generosity, wisdom and power, then you also have to account for AIDS, the pandemic, which is the bubonic plague, desertification, droughts, hurricanes, earthquakes. I go on and on and on and on and on and on, right? So if you're going to look into creation and you say, oh, we can just get so much of his qualities, then you also have to look at the times when someone gets bitten by a snake when they're hiking and dies on the trail and isn't found for 2 weeks, and say, well, that's God's loving creation right there. What can we learn from that? What does that teach us about God's love, power, wisdom? Well, it either teaches us he's not that powerful and he couldn't have prevented it, or he's not that loving and he doesn't care about people, or he's not that wise and he just hasn't thought about it. So when it says look at his love and generosity and wisdom as power, you have to account for the bad things that happen in the world too, that are just what appear to be natural phenomenon as part of his creation. Why has he built into the system so many ways for us to die? Why is it that most species that have evolved on this planet, I know, but we'll just say that he has created and that we have a record that he has created on this planet, have all died? Why have over 90% of everything he's created ended up dying? And how is that supposed to, show us his love and wisdom and power and all that? So next bullet point, it says, get to know God by studying the Bible. If you search for God, he will let himself be found by you, the Bible assures us. So going back to the illustration of the worst reality show ever, imagine that you have all of these 10,000 people, and they all, but there's one book, and you know that there's this one book that was written, and it was by your real father, but it was written in an ambiguous language that was open to interpretation. And every single one of these 10,000 or 9,999 pseudo fathers or fake fathers all give a different spin on what it has to say. And your job is to figure out what the truth is. But the only mechanism, the only thing you have to go off of is the book, which is vague and ambiguous. So how is that going to benefit you? It's a roll of the dice. You wouldn't be able to have enough information based off of that. And I don't see why that's any different than what actually happens amongst, I'm talking about Christians here specifically. I guess we'll grow the Mind of God series to incorporate other ideas about the existence of God. But how is that fair? Imagine being that contestant, and if you don't choose the right person, you get poked with a red-hot poker for the rest of your life. Or, on the other hand, you get to, have a wonderful, meaningful relationship with your father. Now let's go back into the mind. The father is there. He is actively participating in this cruel, ridiculous, illogical game. He's playing a game with his own child's life. He is sitting there knowing that he is going to torture them if they don't make the right decision. And yet, the only information that they have is, well, here's a book that I wrote, but I wrote it in such a way that that thousands of people were all able to come up with their own interpretation of what it really means, and their own interpretation of what I really want. So it just confuses the whole thing. It's lunacy. The next bullet point is learn about God through the life of Jesus. Since Jesus perfectly reflected the personality of his Father, Jehovah God, he could rightly say, whoever has seen me has seen the Father also. Again, all the information that we have about Jesus is contained in this book. So, and the book is open to interpretations. It's full of contradictions. It has failed prophecies contained within it. So how are you able to just say, well, let's look at this character out of this book and I'll learn about him, and somehow that's going to tell me, more about my Father, when all of these other people could just simply, pretend to be the Father as well, because they're exercising those same qualities. And then lastly, it says, live in a way that pleases God and see how he acts in your behalf, Jesus said. Happy are the pure in heart, since they will see God. As noted earlier, some who please God will be resurrected to heaven and thus see God there. Okay, cool. Live in a way that's pleasing to him, and that's somehow you can see God. So you look at this vague book and you guess. And you say, okay, well, maybe one of these guys is right, or you just take the sum total, but you can't take the sum total of what all of them say. You have to pick one in this competition. It still doesn't answer the question about how you can effectively see God. All right, so this illustration is about to get a lot worse, and for good reason. And that is, you have to take into consideration that in this, fictional book that this father wrote for you, he gives examples of when he does demonstrate his existence to other people. So imagine now you have, or when you read this book and you enter this contest, you find out that you have 12 siblings, and all 12 of them have all met their father. He has, hi, I'm your dad, da 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 da. He doesn't leave a question in their mind. It's like, oh, yeah, nope, you have all the information, boom, and I actually showed up. But you specifically, you don't get to meet me. You have to play this game. So God chooses favorites. So when you read this book and then you read, oh, well, God introduced himself to all of my siblings, or my father introduced himself to all my siblings, but he hasn't introduced himself to me. As we always get to in this series is, are we seeing the pattern of a stable, loving God? Or are we seeing a clear example of someone, if he is real, that's a cruel, disgusting psychopath? You're involving your children in some sort of horror movie, some sort of game in which you're playing with their lives when you know better. You could do better, and you have, or hypothetically, you have done better in the past. You have given other of your children an opportunity to get to know you without playing the game. Now, Paul on the Damascus Road, God just shows up and says, hey, I'm real. And he's like, oh, well, hot dog, I guess I'll, start serving you. And it worked. Why wouldn't he do it with you if he's done it with other people in the past? Are you not good enough? Does God just not like you? Are you just doomed to be poked with a red hot poker for the rest of your life? This is a weird little hand motion I'm doing. I don't know. Anyway, so just to tackle the quick apologetics that I'm sure will inevitably come, and that is, well, God doesn't reveal himself because he doesn't want to take away your freedom or your ability to make a choice in the matter. Because, if God just shows up and says everything, well, then everyone would serve him. And, you wouldn't have your free will. Well, that does not work, because you have fallen angels. So I won't even give another example. Yeah, you have fallen angels and Satan. They have seen God, they know God, and yet they chose, free choice, free will, they chose not to worship him. So that argument immediately falls apart. And after that, I don't really know how much more deep the apologetics generally get, because I guess I've never had a meaningful conversation that's gotten beyond that point, because it's kind of just a non-starter. After that point, yeah, the conversation's kind of just dead in the water. So, getting into the mind of God when it comes to divine hiddenness, why he doesn't just show up. I strongly feel that when people don't think about this question seriously, they are missing out on a really rich life that they could be living right now. Because you are telling yourself that you are just going to live for something that can't be demonstrated, that you can't see, and that can't be proven. And in some fundamental ways, you sacrifice the life that you know you live. So we know we are alive, right now. Well, I mean, we could be in the Matrix, but as far as I know, I'm alive. I'm alive, right? And I may as well enjoy that life and just decline to show up to this contest. What's the point? If you were invited to this contest and they said, oh, well, if you choose the right one, you get a magic pill that will let you live forever. But if you choose the wrong one, you get the red hot poker for all eternity. What if that was the case and you knew all the rules going into it? Would you still say, yep, one game show for me, please? I would like to participate in this ludicrous experiment when I literally have a 1 in 10,000 chance of actually finding out who this is. And then if you do win the prize, you have to sit there and sing songs and worship and massage the butt of your father that put you through this. You have to sing songs of praise to this guy if you randomly happen to get it right. Instead of saying, yes, sign me up to play the game, why don't you just not play the game at all? Just say, you know what? If my father is even in there, I don't think I want to know him. Even if it's possible that I could get this magic pill for eternal life, I don't know if it's worth it. Because I don't want to be hit with a red hot poker for the rest of my life if I get it wrong, and chances are I will get it wrong. So no thanks. I will enjoy this life that I know I have. And it also could be the case that none of it's real in the first place, and it's all just some crazy, ludicrous game that you play. I guess we could take it a step further and say, you don't actually get to make the decision on which one is your actual father till the end of your life. So you have to when you sign up to play this game, it will take your entire life before you actually get the answer. You won't get to know who your father actually was until you're basically on your deathbed. And then Bob Callahan comes in and says, well, looks like you've played a really good game. Who's your final pick? Put it in this vanilla envelope, and then we'll see if you got it right. Why would you sign up to that? Just don't. Just stop. It's fine. And if your father is in there, and if what we do know about the more loving passages, I suppose, in the Bible, or if God is meant to be this loving, kind, reasonable, logical person, I cannot imagine a world or a universe where God would punish you for not participating in this wild game. So, getting into the mind of God, part 3, what have we learned about divine hiddenness? It's just another example of God being absolutely crazy, cruel, without justice or a mercy or an ounce of love in his body. Anyway, that is all I have to say about God's divine hiddenness. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still around, don't forget to like and subscribe. I know someone mentioned ZZ should be doing the cool stunts, but I don't think he's in the mood. He's really good if I throw ping pong balls up. He'll just bap them out of the air. He has like 100% success ratio. But as you can see, ZZ is completely uninterested in doing. Hey ZZ, do you wanna play with your ping pong balls? ZZ, ZZ, do you wanna play with your mouse? All right. Well, to anyone that said ZZ should be doing these wicked stunts, then maybe you don't own a cat. All right. See you guys next time. Oh, hey, that got his attention.